Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. I'm Prashant Tibrewal. I'm the founder of Admit Square Consulting. I'm a Sloan Fellows alum from MIT Sloan School of Management. And I have with me Dawna Levenson. Dawna is the Assistant Dean of Admissions at the MIT Sloan School of Management. She holds the SB and SM degrees from MIT Sloan. She worked with Accenture for 18 years before joining MIT Sloan back in 2007. In 2013, she became the Director of Admissions, and in 2018, the Associate Dean. So welcome, Dawna, to the chat.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here. I greatly appreciate the opportunity.
And welcome you all again. So I'll be your moderator for the evening, and you can say yes. You can say yes in the chat window if you can hear us well, and if you'd like to study at the MIT Sloan School of Management.
And I apologize for the barking dog. I'm sorry. And I think I should say good evening, correct? So I appreciate people joining us this evening on your side. Greatly appreciate it.
Yes, and we would love to know if you're joining from outside India. You can in the chat window you can list down your countries, and we would love to see where you're based currently. So for the next 60 minutes, we will touch upon a variety of questions related to MIT, related to the Sloan Fellows MBA. I mean, MIT Sloan is one school that has the widest portfolio of business programs out there. And today we will touch upon the Sloan Fellows MBA. We hope to have Dawna again with us to touch upon the other range of programs for different audiences. And then after a brief 45-minute chat, we will take questions. So you can continue to type your questions in the chat window, and we will pick the ones that have a larger applicability. And then, of course, we will be able to bring in more perspective through Dawna's experience as the admissions head there, and my perspective as an MIT alum. So welcome again, Dawna. And having worked with MIT for over 15 years now, you've played a key role, a defining role in the MIT Sloan admissions process and criteria. So before we start talking about the MIT Sloan Fellows MBA, we would love to know what you like the most about working at the Sloan School of Management.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, good evening, everyone. I think there are many things, but I actually think it begins with the mission of the school itself. And actually, the Sloan School has a very specific mission that falls very much in line with that of the overall Institute of MIT. There's a structured mission. In fact, if you walk into our main building at MIT Sloan in the cafeteria, you can see it engraved on the wall. It's about developing principled, innovative leaders who improve the world. For me, it's really all about identifying and solving and tackling some of the world's greatest problems. Again, trying to make the world a better place. And that really, really resonates with me. I understand the small role that I play in all of that, but it actually gives me a very strong sense of purpose and aligns extremely well with my personal values. And I think it's safe to say that on this day in particular, I don't think anybody would argue that there's plenty of opportunities to improve the world.
Indeed, and we can see that how you have been with MIT for so long. You know how you connect with the mission of MIT, and what I would also add is, how the MIT ethos spills over to the entire city. You know, Kendall Square being the most innovative mile square around, and once you're there, you feel it with all the startups and this entire ecosystem there. So great. I think that's a perfect start by understanding what MIT stands for and what you love about the school. Okay, so let's begin by understanding the Sloan Fellows MBA better. It's a very unique program designed for a very specific audience. So if you could tell us more about the program structure. There's a lot of confusion out there, whether it's a part-time program, whether it is designed for people with very high experience. And so who the right candidate for the SFMBA is, and the typical class profile.
Yep. So let me tell you a little bit about the program itself. This is a 12-month in-resident program. And for those, with the opportunity to receive an MBA degree at the end of that 12 months, you actually could do a thesis and receive a Master's of Science in technology as well. But the majority of our students really choose to pursue the MBA degree. Now, if you've been looking at the program for the last couple of years, if you've been talking to other people who you know have done the program, as a result of the pandemic, the last year, Prashant's class, many people actually did it all online. And for the incoming class that we have now, the summer was intentionally online. But fundamentally, this is really meant to be a 12-month in-residence program, which, quite frankly, I believe then sort of answers the question about being part-time or working while you're doing the program. And, we certainly do not recommend it. As you'll hear from the two of us over the course of the next hour or so, it's a really rich experience, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And to the extent that you want to make the most of this opportunity, it's really best not to be working. Now, having said that, who is the right profile for this program? Let me begin by saying that the students in this program have, on average, 14 years of work experience. We really, really look for a minimum of 10, and there's really no max at all. And so it really nets out to, on average, 14 years of experience. And one of the main things that we're looking for people in this classroom and to contribute to the experience in the community is, in fact, individuals who have general management experience. And we're looking to further develop global leaders in this program. And so we're really looking for people who have, again, on average, 14 years, somewhere between 10 and however many years of experience. We're definitely looking for people with a global perspective. Our class on any given year is somewhere between 75 and 80% international. The class that just matriculated this summer is actually 73% international, but that's actually a little bit lower than it normally tends to be. And so people who really have a global perspective, either in terms of the work you're doing itself, or you work for a global organization, or you're doing work that hits upon people from around the globe. That's something that's really important to us. Innovation is also really important. And there are those who think of innovation and entrepreneurship sort of going hand in hand, and I'm not going to argue with that point. However, I would say that regardless of the type of work that you do, there's an opportunity to be innovative without necessarily being that traditional entrepreneur who starts their own company. That innovation, in order for any company to really survive and thrive, we're looking for people who are innovative, who can, effectively challenge the status quo and look for new and different ways to do things and to grow an organization and to keep it on the right trajectory. And so people who have innovative experience is also something that we're looking for. I mean, we really want people who are looking for a 1-year fully immersive experience to do a lot. And I would really welcome Prashant to respond to this, a lot of self-reflection, self-improvement, whether that be to return to the same organization or to use the opportunity to start on a new path. I guess it's also worth noting that I'm not sure it's exactly 50-50. It varies by years, but fundamentally, I'm going to say 50% of the students in this program are sponsored by an employer who is, ready to promote them to the next level and is looking for some formal training for them. And about 50% of the class are self-funded and are looking to perhaps pivot, perhaps advance themselves, perhaps embark on an entrepreneurial experience. So it's about 50-50. But I think now might be a good time for you to share a little bit about, sort of how you viewed the experience and what you got out of it.
Right. No, I think, a couple of things that you mentioned. One was how the program, was able to adapt online, but what I would rather insist or emphasize is how it was able to even deliver in person,
Yep.
even with COVID. I mean, with the best use of technology, with the best use of COVID testing, and the idea is MIT was one of the few schools that was able to deliver the entire program in person. We were able to come on campus in September, so we were there for fair 8 9 months out of the year, and it was a seamless experience through that. Whereas when you talk about the class, yes, there were people, and I see a lot of questions with people asking how much is too much. So we had people even with 20 25 years experience in the class. So it's really a program for future leaders. And if you demonstrate that potential through your application, I mean, we have had some great potential leaders in the class. And the idea of, people with 14 average class average being about 14 15 years. So you've got enough time to demonstrate what you have, what you are capable of. So that really differentiates the class in terms of how people come here, and they know what they want, because it's not the degree, right? It's there were people in the class who already had a master's from, let's say, a Stanford or a Harvard, and still they come to a Sloan Fellows program because they know what they want, and they really want to achieve that, be it a focus on entrepreneurship, which we will touch upon later, or a focus on the innovation and impact that MIT stands for. So I think for me, the peer group was certainly one of the biggest takeaways from the program. But yeah, moving on. So and I see in the chat that there are the participants from Turkey and Africa. So we really have a international group, and that also brings me to the next question around the fact that for someone with 14 15 years, the class average that we have, it's always a very difficult decision to leave their job, invest so much time and money into a program like this, which is a full-time program. So what would you say, should be the real motivation, and how does the program supports international students and opens doors to opportunities in the US?
Oh, so that's a loaded question. That's like 3 questions. Let me start with the following, and I'm going to be honest. I think when answering the questions about why pursuing any one of our programs, I feel like I have to say that part of this is what the school, the dean's view, and then part of it is the personal view. And so I apologize for that, because I firmly believe that for the most part, pursuing an advanced degree like an MBA, which is different than, so if you want to be a doctor, you have to go to medical school. If you want to be a lawyer, you have to, get a law degree. I think the MBA is not as clear, whether it be the traditional 2-year MBA or more advanced, for an advanced population like Sloan Fellows. And so I actually really think that it's a very personal decision. I firmly believe that the experience that you have is life-changing. And I know this is going to sound like a commercial, but I don't know how you put a price tag on that. And it's life-changing because of partially of the way it's structured. It's life-changing because of the people you will meet who will become your lifelong peers and colleagues, both personally and professionally. It's life-changing because it really forces you as an individual to take a pause and to assess who you are, what your strengths are, your current strengths are, what you want your future to be like, and therefore what skills you may have a gap in that you want to focus on and develop. And it's actually a bit of a luxury. I understand that, but it can be really, really life-changing for you. And if that's something, wherever you are in your life or career, that you understand what I'm saying and you feel is exactly what you're looking for, then by all means, this is the program for you. I have to be careful saying that because you might think, okay, great, sign me up. But yet, of course, it's a competitive program with an admissions process tied to it. But nonetheless, if you're thinking about a program like this, I would not do the take a piece of paper, write down what the cost is of tuition, try to figure out what your current salary is, what a new salary might be, and draw some line that says, how many years is it going to take me to recoup my investment? I just don't think that that's the right way to think about this. It may be a practical way to think about it, but it's not the right way to think about it, because I think you get so much more out of this experience than just potentially a new job or a different job. Now, having said that, and I'm going to sort of roll right into the career support question, we also understand that one of the motivations for people to do this program is, in fact, to change careers in one way or another. We have a career development office that over the last few years has really increased its level of support for our Sloan Fellow students, recognizing that for the process by which somebody in the Sloan Fellows program will, obtain a new position leaving the program is very different than a 2-year MBA, given your years of experience, given the expertise that you've developed, given how employers think about bringing on an experienced person. It's a much more tailored and customized one-on-one experience, as opposed to the holistic, let's bring in companies, have them do info sessions, have many days of interviews and, hire 20 people out of the class. It doesn't work that way because it's not supposed to work that way. You are bringing a certain level of expertise with you to this program, and we don't want to erase that or get rid of that. We want to build upon that. But I think, our career development office has really done an awful lot with the support of outside people, recognizing that we need sometimes outside consultants and outside, HR folks and outside people who are God, why can't I think of the word? I'm having a loss for a second of the word, but people from the outside to help with our Sloan Fellows in terms of helping them position themselves for successful job searches once they leave the program. We also rely heavily on our alumni network. Within the MIT Sloan community, we have over 35,000 alumni worldwide. And we do an awful lot to stay connected with them and to reach out to them to help open doors for our students, particularly our Sloan Fellows.
Right. And like you said, with so much experience, when you come there, it's not for a job, it's for the experience and learning and how you can position yourself in the long term. And I think a few things that really are valuable or were valuable to me were, just beginning with the opportunity to have an executive coach all to myself. So the kind of personal coaching that went into it was really transformational on my leadership skills. And then beyond that, with so much experience, when you come to a particular country, you don't want to, like you said, erase all that you have done. That's your strength. So you want to build on that, and you want to leverage the MIT alumni network to find the right opportunity in the country that you're looking for, mostly in the US. And it being a STEM MBA does add so much value, right? So yeah, I think this question is going to be relevant, of course, for Sloan Fellows applicants, but MIT applicants at large. The idea of having such a unique application, and we'd love to understand what goes behind in terms of the candidate, from the time the candidate submits the application to the time the results are announced. What goes behind so that the candidates can think of it in a logical manner when they're developing their application.
Yep. So let's start with Sloan Fellows. There are 3 rounds for you to apply. I'll say this to you, like I say to most other populations. One tip for me would be to apply as early as you're comfortable doing so. Don't wait till the last round just because you think it gives you more time to fine-tune your application. And for Sloan Fellows in particular, with such a large international populations, it's actually for a couple of reasons. One of which is simply because we don't have quotas. A lot of people think that perhaps we look at what we want the class size to be, which, by the way, our target class size for Sloan Fellows is around 110. To be honest, this year we have 132 in the class, which is amazing. But I think we're looking to probably scale it back down to more in line with pre-pandemic numbers of around 110. Now, people then would assume that perhaps we have quotas where we would admit a third, or something like that. The reality is, for any of our programs, we don't have quotas. We don't have a set number of people we want to admit each round. We want to have the flexibility to be able to reach out to, interview, and admit any and all people who we feel are qualified. So as a result, I want to encourage you to apply as early as possible, because in round 1, we have 110 seats to fill. I'll use that number. By round 2, I don't know how many seats we have, but I can guarantee you it's less than 110. And for round 3, it's even fewer. So in purely looking from a competitive standpoint, you're always better off applying slightly earlier. We do not look at applications in advance of the application deadline, the specified deadline. So if you submit your application today or on the deadline, there's no competitive advantage for you. But you shouldn't wait till the last minute either, just because there could be technical difficulties on your side. We try to minimize them on our side, but again, it doesn't really matter. Once the application deadline's passed, we review all applications, and we read, for Sloan Fellows, we read all applications. We have a core group of trained readers who will read the application, and we have a standard scorecard that we use. We have our readers looking for a certain set of competencies and evidence of those competencies that using the scorecard, they identify them and they quantify them. And based on what they find, they then make an overall recommendation to interview or not. We invite a subset of those who apply to interview. An interview is by invitation only and is a required next step in the process. I can tell you for this coming year, interviews will continue to be virtually. We will be using Zoom as we did last year. Prior to the pandemic, we actually traveled all over the globe for interviews for round 1 and round 2 for Sloan Fellows. Hopefully, we will return to that at some point, but for now, I can tell you that right now, they will be virtually. Think of the interview as a conversation. It is, if you're invited for an interview, we will then ask you also to submit 2 additional pieces of information 24 hours prior to the actual interview itself. There'll be a written essay for you to respond to with regard to how you've contributed to diversity in the workplace. And then a second is we will ask you to share with us a data visualization slide that has meaning to you, whether it's something you created on your own or something that you saw online or somewhere else. What is it? Why is it important to you? Those 2 pieces of information. The interview itself, I like to think of as more of a conversation. We may follow up on some parts of the application that we think need a little bit more explaining. We will ask you a series of behavioral questions. We will really want to talk about why the Sloan Fellows program is you believe is the right thing for you, the right fit for you. And we will give you the opportunity to ask us any and all questions you might have. We schedule interviews for 30 minutes. The interview may last 20 minutes. It may last 40 minutes. I promise you, please do not read anything into the length of the interview. We read all the blogs, and we read when someone says, my interview was 27 minutes with Dawna Levenson. Does that mean she didn't like me? My interview was 34 minutes. Does that mean they loved me? People, we totally understand the importance of every single step in the process. And so I'm not trying to belittle it, but I'm also trying to debunk any kind of myths out there that unless your interview is exactly 30 minutes, you've blown it somehow. That is absolutely not the case. Once we complete the interview process, and by the way, interviews are conducted by a core group of people within our admissions staff. They are not conducted by alums. They are not conducted by students. We then have our admissions committee meetings. We're based now on all of the feedback we've received, both the written application and the interview. Recommendations are made to admit, waitlist, or reject. An important note, especially for people who apply in round 1 and in round 2, is if you are waitlisted, your application will then be considered as part of the next round. So if you apply in round 1 and you are waitlisted, you will then be considered as part of round 2, which is different than we admit a bunch of people in round 2, and if we have any room, we then look at the round 1 wait list. Those are 2 very different things, because again, back to what I originally said, At any point in time, we are in fact looking to admit the most qualified people. And there's a real chance that somebody who applied in round one who was waitlisted is actually more qualified than a new applicant in round two. So keep that in mind. How's that?
No, that's very insightful, and that also leads me to the fact that MIT application has some very unique components compared to most other business schools out there. There is a cover letter, there is an organizational chart, there is a 1 minute video, and of course, like you said, the two essays before. I mean, once one gets the interview invite. So we'd love to hear. There's no one who is in a better position than you to tell us what is expected from each of these components: the cover letter, the org chart, the video interview. So, we'd love to hear your insights on that.
So what I encourage people to do is to think about the cover letter, the resume, and the video together as a package to tell your story. The video is telling your professional history, the resume. The video is really your personal, what is it that makes you you? What gets you up in the morning? What excites you? What do you want your future classmates to know? And then the cover letter is really meant to tie it all together and answer why MIT Sloan. The org chart is very helpful for us to just understand where you sit within an organization. A couple of comments, though, on that is we are not looking for the standard generic org chart that you might be able to find on a company's website. You could almost think of this a little bit more as a relationship chart. So stick yourself in the middle and then think about it. To whom do you report? Who are your peers? Who, if any, are your direct reports? That's really the type of org chart we're looking for. If you happen to be an individual contributor, think about other, clients you might have, other colleagues you might work with from other companies, and show those. If it happens that your recommender is one of those people that I just described, it would be great to highlight that as well on the org chart. If they aren't, and we understand why they may not be, then don't worry about it.
Okay. And yes, and you brought up the recommender, being positioned on the org chart. So would you recommend something related to the recommender being from your previous organization, or would you try and place him on the org chart, in a separate way, or not really?
This is what I recommend. You want your recommender to somebody who is your champion, who is willing to take the time to write a meaningful and thoughtful letter of recommendation, who knows you well enough, who can speak to the impact that you have made on an organization. Now, that could be a former colleague or employer, or that could be a current. If you've just switched jobs, though, and you've only been working in your current organization for a few months or so, and so you might have someone from your former job who knows you better, that's fine. Also, their title is not that important. We're not assessing them, we're assessing you. So if you bump into the CEO of your company on an elevator and think, oh, maybe he or she will remember me because I hit their floor button for them and they'll write a few sentences on my behalf, that's not what we're looking for, and that's a missed opportunity. If you happen to be part of a family business, we also do not view family recommendations as satisfying our requirement. So again, look for a client, look for a contractor, or somebody else with whom you interact.
Right. And what I would read from your input is one can very well bring in external stakeholders on the org chart. It's not just your organization.
100%. There are no rules, which is why I like to talk about what the intent is, and therefore leave it up to you to figure out who are the right people to put on the chart.
Right. Great. And then you touched upon the different aspects of the application, but cover letter being such an iconic part of the Sloan application, I would love to spend a few more minutes on that and understand if there are some common mistakes that candidates make on the cover letter. And this year, I believe for the Sloan Fellows, the word limit has been reduced a bit. So if you could touch upon that as well, by 100 words. So and there is a career goal component that
Right,
has
we
been added.
shifted, right. In the overall scheme of things, we've actually given you, I think, more words. We've just broken it
More
up
words.
into 2 different essays, right?
Yeah.
So let me talk about the second essay first. In fact, I'm looking down because I printed them out in anticipation of this just to make sure I have the wording right. So I apologize, everyone. So the second essay, which is around professional goals, is really meant to force you to pause and think about what is it that you want to do and how is the Sloan Fellows program specifically going to help you get there? And that's meant for 200 words or less. And I think it's really good for someone to pause and think about as much what they want to do, but then to really dig into Sloan Fellows and MIT Sloan and the MIT opportunities to see how any and all of them are going to help best position you for success. The cover letter is really more like a traditional cover letter, which can never say everything. There's all these stats out there that, I don't know, recruiters spend 7 seconds or something on a resume and cover letter, like ridiculously small amount of time. We spend more than that. Please don't, I'm not saying that that's all we spend. But the point of a cover letter is to really catch the attention of the reader, making them want to know more, and definitely not putting something in there that's going to be a huge turnoff. The cover letter could potentially hurt you more than help you by putting in things that could be a potential turnoff, and you want some examples. So I think the biggest mistake in the cover letter is restating whole sections of our website. Like, you want to go to MIT Sloan, and then you copy the section that describes the Sloan Fellows program and put it on your cover letter. That is a complete missed opportunity and a waste of real estate. And we see that a lot. Or putting something in your cover letter that is not reinforced somewhere else in the application, whether it be on your resume or whether it be, in your video, and it sort of just comes out of left field. The cover letter is, your overall summary. It's the word count makes it a little bit challenging because I think it forces you to think about every word. But nonetheless, your number one, so 2 goals, I think, of the cover letter. I'm doing this off the fly here, but 2 goals. One is, again, to make sure whatever you're saying in your cover letter is somehow reinforced somewhere else in the application. And number 2, it leaves us wanting to know more and hear more about you.
Right. No, that's a very good way to put it across. And to add to what you said about having no rules on the application, org chart, cover letter. So the problem is the moment people start applying templates to their application, and that's when things start going wrong. And even on the 1-minute video, I mean, yes, there is no editing, but then one can be creative with what they say. And that's something that I believe Sloan appreciates, because sorry.
No, go ahead, and then I'll say what I wanted to say. Go ahead.
Yes, I was just adding how I took that risk. I ended up in my 1-minute video, I ended up introducing myself through a poem, and that probably worked. So I agree that there are no rules indeed. But sorry, you were saying something.
No, yeah. So what I was saying is, what was I just going to say? You said something that triggered it. Oh, the video. Yeah. You are right. We love a little creativity, but please, not at the expense of our ability to hear. And I'm going to give you a great example. Not this past year, a couple of years ago, it was very popular for people who love to ski to shoot their videos on the top of a mountain or on a ski lift. Visually beautiful, unbelievably difficult to hear what they were saying because there was so much noise. So in the end, make sure we are able to hear what it is that you're trying to convey. And of course, we always welcome a little creativity.
Indeed. Great. Thanks, Dawna. And coming back to the different components, you mentioned how, each element is quantified. One is able to put that across. And the test score is an important component, or is one of the components of the entire process. Now, of course, because of COVID and otherwise, the Sloan Fellows program has been accepting the executive assessment, and this year it's also optional. So, if you could tell us more about the importance of the test score and how probably not having it impacts the application or not.
So the executive assessment we've been accepting for a long time for Sloan Fellows now, since we reinstituted the requirement for people to submit an exam. Last year, in the height of the pandemic, especially given the global profile of the applicant pool, we really felt that we could not require people to include the test component. And at the same time, we made it easier for people to provide us with additional information about online courses they may have taken or certificates they may have received. I mean, in the end, the test score is, so let me back up a little bit. When we're assessing individuals, we're fundamentally asking ourselves three questions. Number one, can he or she do the work and be successful in an MIT Sloan Fellows MBA classroom? We would never, ever want to admit somebody who wasn't able to be successful in the classroom. And the various pieces of evidence that we use to assess that include, formal education, undergraduate, graduate education. They include the nature of the work that you're currently doing or that you have been doing. And they also include things like a GMAT or a GRE or an EA exam. None of those are taken in isolation. So by not requiring that one piece of information, we still felt very comfortable in our ability to assess your ability to be successful in the classroom. It might have, from our standpoint, it wasn't so much of a missed opportunity for some applicants, though, who perhaps did not do as well in undergrad, wanted the opportunity to demonstrate their abilities via a test. They submitted a test score if they could. And the same with this year. Now, I'm being totally honest, this is not meant to be something permanent, but we will now have 2 years worth of data without a test score and with the performance of our students in the classroom to really be able to do some level of assessing, just how well they align and perhaps helping us to make a longer term decision. But we have not yet made that longer term decision.
Right. No, that certainly makes sense because I can remember some of the classes, especially on the statistics and economics and data analytics side, where if one did not have the right academic aptitude, one would really not fare well. And there were people in the class. I remember there were people from a fashion design background who probably did not have the exposure to a math degree, whereas if they could demonstrate that through a test score, then the admissions committee starts believing that they have the right tools to fare well in the class.
The other thing that we do for Sloan Fellows, which has really proven to be significantly helpful, is we require all of our students, once admitted, to take a series of math classes to help prepare them. And maybe you can speak to that, Prashant, but our faculty have certainly seen a difference in terms of the preparedness of the students when they've all come in pretty much at the same level in terms of their math knowledge and what's top of mind for them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was one of the biggest tasks before we joined the program, to be able to pass those tests and go through the videos. And a lot of them touched upon some high-level math, including stats and calculus. And I think that really helped well. And that's something that everyone has to go through and clear that before they start the program. So yeah, that works well, even if you're from a non-engineering background. Great. So yeah, that was the application component. But once one is there, and you talked about impact and innovation at MIT, and that clearly has translates well to MIT's strength in entrepreneurship. So if you could talk more about the entrepreneurship ecosystem at MIT and how it is so strong and well known across the world.
So I'm happy to. And I often get this question, and I have to pause, not because there's nothing to say, but because there's so much to say. Like the entrepreneurial spirit quite frankly, is in everything we do, even in, again, those classes that aren't true entrepreneurship classes. But with regard to the ecosystem, I think the heart of it is the Trust Center. So it's the Martin Trust Center for MIT Entrepreneurship, which is very significant. While at Sloan, we love to call it our own, it actually is meant to support the whole institute. And at the Trust Center houses our 100K competition, the entrepreneurship and innovation track. So in terms of the curriculum, you have a core set of classes, and then you pretty much have the ability to take electives to meet your own needs and interests. A few years ago, we had a couple of Sloan Fellow students who were passionate about entrepreneurship. They looked over at the MBA program, which had an entrepreneurship and innovation track, which is pretty much a roadmap for a series of courses that you can take in a particular area. And for the MBAs, it's really designed to span their 2 years. And these students thought that with a little bit of innovation, they could modify this to be able to be accomplished by Sloan Fellow students who are really interested in entrepreneurship and innovation, which is exactly what they did. And so now we actually have an E&I track for our Sloan Fellow students. Now, it's an opportunity to quickly get to meet a community of people who have similar interests. There's a core set of required classes and some electives that are tied to it. And again, a lot of this is deeply connected to the Trust Center. There are, beyond the competitions, there's, a series of classes that people can take. And then there's the expansion outward into the greater MIT community, Cambridge, Boston community, and global entrepreneurial community through many different mechanisms.
Right. I think, yeah, that speaks of the ecosystem. And what's also interesting is not just in this context, but in the larger context that MIT students can take classes at Harvard, Harvard students can take classes at MIT. And there are so many Harvard students who just love taking classes, especially entrepreneurship related classes at MIT, because it's so well known. And, like you said, the Martin Trust Center, I personally had good entrepreneurship focus when I went to Sloan, and I think I was able to benefit the most because I knew what I wanted to do. I was able to incubate my startup there. I was able to get mentored by even not just successful entrepreneurs, but even VCs, and that is through the MIT Sandbox. And beyond that, I think the fact that there are classes and electives where you can have a PhD student who might be studying computer science, studying AI, machine learning, and you get to collaborate with someone like that, get to work on your startup, team up. So this is a very different ecosystem out there where you start not just developing ideas but thinking very differently. So you see your approach getting transformed just by being in those sessions and by looking at what other people are doing. So it just has a spillover effect, and you get to think and believe in innovation more than ever before. So yeah, I think that's something that certainly defines what MIT is. There are we talked about the class, and then we talked about the class profile. I see there are quite a few questions around people who are on the bottom line, like 9-10 years of experience, and they don't know whether they should go for a 2-year program or the Sloan Fellows 1-year degree. So what would be your advice to these people? How do they evaluate their own fit?
So I think there's a couple of things. One is I encourage you to reach out to us and have an individual conversation with one of our admissions staff members who can talk about your specific situation. I think that at the 8, 9, 10-year mark, one thing to think about is with the 2-year MBA, you actually have an opportunity for a summer internship. So if you're looking to make a significant change, whether it be industry or job function, and you think that the internship is going to help you develop some skills to better position you for a job once you're out, then that could potentially be a justification for leaning more towards the 2-year degree.
Right.
I think there's no simple answer for everyone.
Yes. So I think one important component of the process would be to reach out to admissions and get your profile. I mean, have a conversation, understand both the programs, and then take a call. Great, and then of course, I believe one of the most exciting parts of the experience was not just for me but also for my family, because Sloan Fellows program with candidates with 14, 15 years, a lot of them come with family. They have their and what Sloan calls the significant others, and of course, a lot of them have children along. So we'd love to know more about how the significant other ecosystem is has evolved at the Sloan Fellows and how it is an integral part of the program.
Yeah, so I agree with what you said. Given the population, the profile of the population in Sloan Fellows, many of our students tend to come to the program with their families. And pre-pandemic, we had lots of programming for families. The pandemic has put a little bit of a halt on that. I have to be honest, this coming year, I'm not sure it's going to be a whole lot better. It might be a little bit better, but we're challenged with the fact that we're still trying to have a controlled campus and environment, and significant others, as much as we view them as part of the overall experience from an MIT standpoint, they're still considered visitors. And so, but we're trying to work around that. And we completely understand, the fact that many of you do come with families, and are trying to do everything we can to provide your family with a certain level of programming and experience and opportunities to connect with others. And so you certainly would never feel alone.
Right. And I think it starts right from the fact that MIT has family housing to how there is a strong ecosystem to integrate the family along, because what I felt was the program office went out of their way to ensure that the family feels excited to be a part of the program, or their spouses to be a part of the program, because they are such a strong support system when you are so busy with the program. And uh, and then I ended up, I mean, I would say my wife made more friends and stronger connections because she was able to party more than we did. We were studying, but the idea is, the family being there, they are able to network as much as we would as a participant to the program. And then certainly the diversity and how the family comes out with friends and a network that is truly global. So this is not just something that participants take out from the program, but it's also the significant others.
Yep. Very much
Right.
so.
And yes, and so I think yeah, these were largely what we wanted to talk about. But before we move to audience questions, there are quite a few questions out there. You know, would you would you think there is something about the SFMBA program that you would further touch upon, or the applicants would love to know more about?
So I think this is a very unique program. I think if you have been doing your homework, you'll see there are not that many full-time on-campus programs for people who have, at the executive level. Truly Sloan Fellows programs are actually only 3. And one of them has actually changed its name and no longer even calls it a Sloan Fellows program anymore. But nonetheless, there are very few. I think when I'm asked for any of our programs, but particularly our different MBA programs, what makes our program different than any other, my response is quick, without hesitation. It's the MIT and MIT Sloan. And it provides you with the opportunity to take advantage of classes and clubs and conferences throughout the institute to the extent that you want to and you're interested. No other program can say that.
Right. And of course, the legacy of the program. So this was the first Sloan Fellows program out there, and it's what, 85 years old or so.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Great. I think this kind of sums up the larger aspects that we wanted to touch upon. But there are some interesting questions in the chat. There are some that are very specific to individual profiles. So I would suggest you either reach out to the Sloan admissions, or you can even write to me at my email address that will be posted in the chat if you want any specific questions answered related to your profile. but we will take questions that have that may be of interest to the larger audience. So one of the questions, Dawna, is about reapplication,
Yep.
and because there were a lot of applicants last year who were also waitlisted, and they went through the process till pretty late. And the components of the application essentially remain the same. You still have to submit the cover letter. You still have to submit a video.
Yep.
So how does one handle this as a reapplicant? What
Yep.
new or how different could they do?
So we are big fans of reapplicants. Reapplicants do tend to do pretty well in our program. It is absolutely not a negative for anybody. But what we encourage you to do is highlight the differences. What's new? What's changed since you last submitted your application? And you can state that in your cover letter. You should be able to exhibit that in your resume. If you want to use the same recommender, that's perfectly fine, but ask him or her to update what their comments are as well. And again, as I said before, I encourage you to apply as early as you possibly can. Whether, as a reapplicant, you probably know today that you're interested, so apply in round one. It can only help.
Right. No, what's often said is apply when you are the most prepared, but you better be prepared early enough. So
Perfect.
so it's all about the kind
Yep.
of thought you bring into the process.
Yep.
Great. And then there are questions related to uh, the knowledge of coding and Python and being an engineer. So
So being an engineer, not so much. I guess you have more relevant information. You just spent a year with us. How important was it to know how to code?
not at all, not at all. So
Okay.
there are specific courses that you can take where you may need to learn R, but then that's your choice. If you want to get into that field, and if you come from that background, yeah, why not? And then if you don't come with the right background and still take an elective that requires a very basic amount of coding, then you're probably mentally prepared to do that. Right. And there is another question about people with background that is more towards social impact and not really a corporate background. So are they the right fit, or how do they present their suitability to the program?
So we're doing an awful lot at the school around social impact. In fact, within our finance group, we've just launched a new, I'd say it's a little bit of a marketing initiative, but it's around the impact ecosystem. There are courses now, there's clubs, there's competitions. We understand that many of our students are either coming from this area or really want to get into it, and think it's terrific. And I think their school has a lot to offer in this space.
Right. And then MIT Solve is again another exciting opportunity on the social impact, which is open to MIT students, which is open to even people who are not from MIT. So it's really out there to encourage people to create social impact irrespective of where they are.
Correct.
So there is, specific to Indian candidates, I see quite some questions around being from an IT background, having worked as a software engineer for 10 years, 15 years, coming from backgrounds like TCS, Infosys. How do they differentiate their profile, or how do they present
Yep.
their uniqueness in the application?
Yep. So I think it's really important that you demonstrate any and all opportunities you've had to lead, whether it be small groups of developers or larger teams, or projects. We're looking very much for people with leadership skills. If you've spent 15 years as an individual contributor coding, I'm not sure this is the right fit for you. But I'm pretty sure that you may have been working for an Infosys for 15 years, but your responsibilities have increased and you've advanced within the organization, and you have, in fact, had more responsibilities. And I think it's, up to you to share that information with us. So, being an IT individual working for Infosys alone doesn't bother me at all. It really depends on what your specific role has been over the course of the years.
Right. And I think it also, comes back to the same aspect of knowing why you're coming to the program. So if you know what you're coming to the program for and what unique aspects you bring to the program, then you're able to communicate that through the application. But then you cannot have worked for 15 years and then say that I didn't have enough time to prove my leadership potential or demonstrate my leadership potential. And beyond that, yes, it's about certainly bringing, because this is a very small class, about 110 people. So each person, each candidate has a role to play. So if you come to the class without having or demonstrating some authority over your industry, your function, or something, then probably you're not the right fit for the class. Great. And then there is, you mentioned that there is a good number of people who are sponsored candidates. Quite a few are from Japan, is what I see in the class, but there are a few from India as well. And there is a question around if that comes as an advantage. Does one get an easier entry if they are a sponsored candidate?
Nope. That's an easy question. The answer is no. We assess everybody on the same criteria.
Right. So you still have to go through the same process, apply, and
100%. There's
you
no
won't get in on
guarantees.
merit.
No. Nope.
Right. And the same logic that, you should, even if you're sponsored, you should be the right fit to be one among the 100, which is a very
Absolutely.
handpicked program.
Yes, we do not blindly accept all sponsored students. Absolutely not.
Right. And then, of course, I see another question around deferrals. And with COVID, there were a higher number of deferrals. So how is it now? And would you think that impacts the incoming class or the competition in any way?
Yep, it does. We do have. I'm not going to share the exact number, but we do have a fair number of deferrals, and so we reach out to them this summer. Now we ask them what their intentions are. They say they want to join us. Then that reduces the number of seats we have, but we'll know that early on in round one to help us plan.
Right. And then this being a 1-year program, of course, for international candidates, that's good time to take, good money to take out as well. So there are some questions about the financing and scholarships.
Yep, we have a
mm,
limited
would-
number of merit-based fellowships that we offer. I have to be honest, they're no more than 25,000 US dollars, which, knowing the tuition amount for Sloan Fellows, it's nice, but it isn't really going to make any difference, I don't think, whether or not someone's going to be able to attend or not. I encourage you to look for other sources of sponsorship or funding or scholarship. We do have several loans available here in the States for people without a co-signer. But nonetheless, I completely appreciate and understand, that it is not an insignificant amount of money at all to come to this program.
Right. And what I would add is, if you think you're the right fit for the program, if you think you're really keen to be a part of the program, then there is a good support system in terms of funding or financing your program. There is I remember there's something called Discover Loans, which
Correct.
MIT has collaboration with. So in India, if you were to go out and take a huge amount from a bank, then you may need to put in some collateral, a co-signer, and there is a larger process to it. But then the moment people had admit from the Sloan Fellows program, Discover Loan was very easy to manage, and it came at a reasonable interest rate without a lot of paperwork. So financing is not going to be a reason why you can't attend the program. Great. I think yeah, we touched upon quite a few things. You will be able to reach out to Dawna. You'll be able to reach out to me with more questions in the future. But I would also take this opportunity to thank Dawna. You really took out time. This is a busy time with all the deadlines and you managing all the programs at MIT Sloan. So thank you so much for taking out time, presenting your insights here.
Let me thank you for the opportunity, hopefully you all found this to be of value. I would actually encourage you, though, to go to our website and look for even more opportunities to engage with us. We're hosting small coffee chats and info sessions and faculty webinars and subject matter webinars. There's lots and lots of ways for you to connect virtually with us over the course of the next year.
Right. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for taking out time so late. It's India time, 10 p.m. So thanks
Thank
again,
you all.
and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.